Does stock market news matter if you are the average retail investor? Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Morning Coffee with Mike. And today we are talking about whether or not the news even matters if you are the average retail investor. Now, there's going to be people on both sides of the spectrum here. There's really two schools of thought. Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. If you believe that stock market news does matter, you might have the rationale that, you know what, I want to know why something is moving, or I at least want to know what others are saying about why the stock or the market is moving. Then you look on the other side of the spectrum, and maybe you're someone that doesn't believe the news at all. Maybe you think that you are being fed a narrative that, you know what, I don't believe what they're purporting. Maybe they're trying to misguide me or lead me off into the wrong direction. I'm going to think for myself. Let me know in the chat whether you're watching over here on Instagram or you're watching over here on Twitter or YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn. Type into the chat. Let me know which camp you guys fall into. Do that now. I'll share with you some of my own thoughts on this. Okay, so my first thought on does stock market news matter if you are the average retail investor? First thought is we trade our beliefs. We all trade our beliefs. So if you believe that it matters, then it does matter. If you believe that it doesn't matter, then it does not. And that would be step one. That does not preclude that we can't change our beliefs. Maybe you're listening to this and your beliefs will change after listening to this show, but always take into account, question everything. That's my philosophy. You always want to question everything. So, my belief is that it does not matter. And there's a number of reasons why, and I'll give you my own reasons. First reason is really because I've built a system that does not require me to be looking at the market or the stock market news. And I'm able to take action, and I built a very nice edge for myself that tends to win twice as much as it loses, and it's has an average gain of or an average win rate of about 50%. So it's like if you flip a coin, you're winning two if it lands on heads, and you lose $1 if it lands on tails. So that nets out to a nice positive. Other reasons for why I don't think that the stock market news matters if you are the average retail investor. Number one is that the market is a forward-looking vehicle, meaning that the what's happening now is looking out about 6 months from now. So the news is still negative. The news is still talking about how the interest rates are elevated and so many different things about why the market is going to roll over and die. There's all these wars. There's a most of the news that you're going to see is negative, and there really are. And if you think about these kinds of things, there's plenty of reasons why the market should collapse. Why is the Nasdaq up about 30% right now on the year? Well, because forward-looking mechanism, right? So we're projecting 6 months into the future. That's number one. Number two, the market itself is a voting machine. What does that mean? That means that everything that is all the decision makers, every single decision that you could think of, or that even beyond what you could think of, is being factored into the price right now. So take a look at the market, take a look at the S&P, the NASDAQ, well, whatever you want to look at. And where price is right now is a representation of everybody that has pulled out money and voted with their dollars. And that's happening in real time all the time when the market is open. So you could see what people are actually doing just by looking at the price action. You don't need to know why they're making the actions that they're making. You couldn't know the reasons why they're making the actions that they're making. You might be able to read some news articles and try to make a guess, but none of us really know why people are making the actions that they're making. But we can see what they're doing, and we can see the rate at what they're doing it. We can see the rate at what they're doing it by looking at both price and volume. Those things don't lie. That's just data. So if you're interested in truth, you're looking at the data and not letting other people tell you one way or the other. Whether it's some news outlet, whether it's me, whether it's anybody else, you're interpreting it for yourself. Number three, price action holds unbiased truth, or yields unbiased truth. And that's really what it is. You're not looking at somebody's opinion, you're looking at the facts. Number four, edges can be developed without the news. And it's not just me, it's from all the people that I've studied, from O'Neill, from Minervini, from Nicholas Darvis to Dan Zanger. Dan Zanger is the world record holder for swing trading. I think that he had something like a 16,000% return in the span of 2 years. What he is quoted as saying, and I've shared this quote many times before, is that he completely turns out the news and everything else that's not a part of his system during market hours. And the reason why is because he believes that anything that is being said is being meant to mislead him. Being meant to mislead him. This is a guy that turned 10 grand into 11 million in the span of about 2 years. Doesn't look at the news. Think there's something to be said about that. And number five, I would say that breaking news forces the fight or flight reaction. So think about it like this. Let's say you're somebody that trades based off the news. You're sitting there, you're waiting for some kind of news action to happen. And then all of a sudden, bam, breaking news. You don't know exactly when the news is going to break, it just breaks. You see the news, you see the headline, and then you're trying to find out, oh, is price moving this way? Is price moving that way? How, well, what's the headline? Well, what's being said in this article? Well, how is this going to affect other things? And in doing all that, it's creating a fight or flight response. You don't need to build that level of stress into your trading. In fact, it's actually much easier to not look at the news at all and to look at, well, what's the facts here? Right? That there's news coming out every moment of every day. I could just look at a chart and see, oh, well, prices moving sideways, prices moving higher, prices breaking out, prices breaking support, prices breaking down. And that's all that's needed. Love to hear what questions you guys have. Type into the chat, let me know. Just going to scroll over here through Instagram and see what questions you guys have. You guys over here on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, please type into the chat as well. Okay, time for questions. Questions. All right, we've got one dissenting opinion in Instagram. I'd love to hear why. Yeah, let's see here. Well, what was that person's name? Yeah, if you have an opinion, yeah, that's the one of the great things about this platform and other platforms, free debate, right? Like, you could, we both bring our ideas, and then you're able to flesh them out and talk about them. Uh, if you're just looking at news headlines and articles and people are building statements, then you don't really have that opportunity for debate. Here's somebody on YouTube. Uh, Thanks, big fan from Thailand. Glad to have you on. Welcome. Yeah, tell me what you guys think about the news and if the news is necessary. And I'm not saying that the news is completely irrelevant. If you're using the news to trade off of and you've found success with trading the news, then Godspeed. What I'm saying is that it's not inherently necessary where you have to use the news in order to trade well, in order to make money. You might use it, but just because you use it, it doesn't mean that it's universally necessary. Let me know if that part makes sense. All right, here's a great question. How to deal with psychological pressure when losing. Now, if you're somebody that's trading based off the news, then your own decision making could be more tied into how you're interpreting the data, how you're analyzing things, and then getting caught up in, okay, things are moving this way, things are moving that way. Your fight or flight is being triggered, and managing your emotions becomes even more critical, even more important. Um, and it's another reason why I think that trading based off of price action is can remove a bias or remove that kind of ego from the trading. But how to deal with psychological pressure when losing. The way to deal with psychological pressure when losing, one way is to understand your statistics. So, what does that mean? What are the statistics of your edge? We spoke about edge earlier. So, our edge is what allows us to flip this proverbial coin over and over and over again and yield a positive result after we flip this thing 100 times. Great. So, if we know the stats of our system, then it's allows us to deal with losses that much better. Why? Because we know what is normal and what's abnormal. For me, I have a 50% win rate. My average gain is about 2. My average loss is about 1, right? So I'm say my average gain is really about 10%. My average loss is about 4.5%, 2 to 1. So with that knowledge, I already know that there's going to be losing streaks, right? Like I can have 8 losses in a row over a span of 100 trades, right? You're flipping a coin. It's not going to be one heads, one tails, one heads, one tails, one heads, one tails. You flip that thing 100 times, you're going to have streaks in there. So that becomes normal. But you're able to understand and deal with the streak of like, okay, this is a losing streak of 6, 7, 8 in a row. That yeah, it might suck if you're going through it, and I'm not going to say that it doesn't suck if you're going through it. However, you'll be able to deal with it better if you know if it's at normal versus abnormal, and that comes from understanding your edge, understanding the stats of your edge. The What I would say is the wrong way to do it would be to kind of close your eyes and just pretend that it's not there. Right? That's not what trading psychology is about. That's not what managing our emotions is about. We need to dig into and understand the data because it's not just about dealing with our emotions. We also want to get the result that we're after, right? Or the result that we're after is to have that steadily rising equity curve. We can get there even if we have a span of losers. If that span of losers is normal for our edge, and let's say that you have a 20% win rate, but your average gain is 5 times or 6 times what you risk. So you flip that coin, you are getting $6, and every time you get it on tails, you're losing $1. And you're only winning 20% of the time, right? So you flip that coin 10 times, you won $12, you lost $8, that's still a winning system. So you need to understand your stats. That's the bottom line. And one of the reasons why I talk so much about stats and why I talk so much about journaling in my book, The Trading Mind Wheel, is for this reason. So that way you're creating that kind of awareness for yourself and it takes off the pressure because you know There's a big difference between hoping and there's a big difference between knowing. And you want to know your stats and the stats of your edge. Which one is important between price action and fundamental news? I think that the price action is what I'm leaning on. And I'll tell you why the price action is what I'm leaning on. One, because price action, I see price action as truth. It's truth of where price is right now, how, and price can rapidly change. I understand that. But wherever price is right now, that's the where it actually is right now. That's how the market is valued it, and the value can fluctuate rapidly. Sometimes fundamental news might come out on a stock. Let's say there's a great beat, right? Like the earnings came out and the company crushed earnings. Price can gap up. I've also seen price gap way down. How does that happen? Because price action is truth, and you could see how the market is interpreting that fundamental data. Well, what you and I might think of how earnings are, and oh, it's so great and rosy, versus how the market reacts could be two totally different things. We might think that earnings sucks, but they actually missed earnings, and the stock goes way up. Our opinion doesn't really matter. The opinion that matters is the market's opinion. And we get to see the market's opinion in price. And we could also interpret it based on volume as well. Let's see. Other questions? That might be a good one to wrap up on if there's no other questions. All right. So, a couple of things that I want to share with you. Number one, we're moving the show to Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. I'm going to be taking off on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So, again, we're going to be doing this show on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays for the foreseeable future. Same time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Number two, if you haven't done so already, make sure that you like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you happen to be watching this. If you're watching it on YouTube, then drop a comment. If you're watching this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts later on, leave a review, put 5 stars. That's going to help this message get out to a lot more people. And number three, if you're not already on the free newsletter that we have on marawealth.com, go to marawealth.com, get on our newsletter, because we put out lots of free information, lots of free education, and I share my weekly watch list on there for free. And the market has been ripping. There have been so many winning trades on there, and I share how the trades performed from the week before, and I share the current trade ideas that I'm looking at for the week ahead. So make sure that you get onto our newsletter. Again, marawealth.com. Go check it out. And that is it for today. I want to say thank you so much for joining me for this morning coffee with Mike, and I'll see you again next week. Take care. Much love. Peace out.